Picture this. 200 years ago, a French inventor took the first photograph. Well, the first semi-successful photograph. It would take an additional 17 years after that before a process that would permanently capture an image would be invented. This multi-hour process consisted of a sheet of copper plated with silver and treated with iodine vapor. Just last week, my friend showed me her iPhone 11. 3 cameras with refined detail, instant feedback, and while it's a little too wide to fit comfortably in the palm of your hand, it's more accessible than either of the aforementioned French inventors could ever have dreamed of. This amazing advancement in technology that took so long to realize deserves to be acknowledged. And it is. But equally important is the passion that all photographers have. A passion to capture and share meaningful moments in time. Hi, my name is Grace Jordan, and for my senior project, I wanted to find out what defines a good photo in the eyes of both the photographer and their audience. When I was younger, I was always taking and hoarding photos on anything with a camera. Deleting any of them seemed absolutely impossible, as they were all too precious and too important to me, and that I would absolutely need them to remember these amazing moments in the boring far-off future. Currently in the boring far-off future, I can tell you that very few of those hundreds of photos I took were even in focus, let alone even clear about what you were actually looking at. I didn't start caring about technological and artistic aspects of photography until I took a class at Bow during my junior year. I learned that a photo could look really nice and have meaning to it. Or better yet, that I could take a photo that looked really nice and had meaning to it. It was great. Then through this newfound passion in photography, my family found it relevant to tell me my late papa, or grandfather, used to be a photographer. That what I'd always thought to be a cluttered storage room was actually a self-made darkroom. I felt the need to push on with learning after hearing about this information, learning more about this art form, because to get better at the photography and to get closer to him. It wasn't long before I began to define good photos as one that is technically competent rather than one that has meaning. It didn't matter how much time and heart I put into a photo. If it was a little blurry, then it wasn't up to par. This was the mindset I had when I started this project that consisted of taking photos and selling them at the local crafts fair and then donating all the proceeds to the Audubon Center. With that in mind, it's fair to say my research was pretty dry at the beginning, learning about how professional photographers go about taking photos and how they manage to sell them in an environment that is already oversaturated with photography isn't as thrilling as it sounds. What was interesting, though, is how the oversaturation of technology didn't really faze them. What they were more concerned about was how to best sell themselves in this modern age. What do I mean by that? Branding. There was a constant theme of giving your client or your audience a really good initial impression of yourself first and your work second. The art of getting your client attached to the hopefully likable personality behind the camera. The ability to sell yourself as an individual that people can genuinely connect to sells. And because of that connection, they want to see more and more of your work. Not mainly because it's quality per se, but because they have an emotional interest in you. This bugged me because, as I stated earlier, I value technical ability over emotional attachment. It made sense, but I was struggling to see myself ever being open enough to sell my work second rather than first. Then my interviews with Drew Groves and Heidi Power happened, and despite having a similar emotional rating of images, I ended up getting back some of my lost enthusiasm. Both of them are talented photographers who consider photography as a hobby rather than a job, and immediately there was a difference in tone. Unlike my research, Drew and Heidi were easygoing about how they went about things, taking photos whenever they could, not focusing on much on perfection, and taking the time to genuinely enjoy the process. Their goals when taking a photo were both to capture a moment, a feeling, and or something spontaneous and unpredictable, and to capture a moment of emotion, story, or an image that is yet to be seen. Both their goals made me more aware of how important the passion behind a photo really is. During the 8 hours on the first day of the fair, there were 2 moments that I hope I'm not going to forget anytime soon. Both happened at the end of the day when I was completely exhausted, yet both also resulted in the same feeling of pride. The first was with a younger woman with 2 kids and this photo of a grasshopper. I was always really proud of this photo. I was sure it was going to sell well, and I was really excited to see how people reacted to it. Over the course of those first 5 hours, it was only really brought up in passing as, "Oh, gross, a bug?" And my favorite, "Is that a cricket or a grasshopper?" I mean, I get it. I totally get it, but just because I get it doesn't mean it didn't drain me a little bit more each time. So when this lady came by and looked down at this photo and just gasped, I thought, here we go again. She would be the only person to buy that photo over those 2 days. And when she was buying it, she was just so happy, like just so passionate about her love for grasshoppers, of all things. It was just such a pleasant experience after so much. It was refreshing. Then, maybe about an hour after her, an older woman walked right up to this bear photo I had placed out in front as a raffle prize. I didn't really like this photo. I had to run out quick to catch the bear before he ran off with our bird feeder, so I didn't have enough time to properly get the shutter speed and exposure right. On top of that, this bear looks really raggedy. Every time I looked at it, all I could see was the ticks around his ears and eyes, and oh, no. It just wasn't what I liked. But apparently this lady absolutely loved it. And just like Grasshopper Woman before her, she was so excited and happy. A few memorable quotes from her were, "Oh, I just love bears. This is beautiful, so cute. How much is it?" I had to tell her you can't buy it separately, it's part of the raffle. But even after I explained it to her, I don't think she got it. But she still gave me $5. This was made a lot sweeter though when she eventually did win the bear, so that was good. These 2 interactions were the final push that changed my previous mindset about what defines a good photo. I thought the grasshopper was a good photo, and only one person bought it. I hated the bear photo, yet it was one of the more popular raffle prizes. Everything I had expected or tried to predict was immediately thrown out the window, giving me the answer to my question. So what defines a good photo? A lot of things, but they all depend on the individual. Individuals like Grasshopper Lady, who looked at a gross subject and found cuteness somehow. Individuals like Eleanor, an old lady who really just liked bears. The quality wasn't important to them. It was all about emotional connections. Individuals like Heidi and Drew, who wanted to capture spontaneous emotions and moments in time, who valued both ability and emotional connections. Through this experience, I now believe a balance between technical and emotional defines my idea of a good photograph. Because with any form of art, it is all subjective. We decide what defines a good photograph, both the photographer and their audience. Any questions? Thank you.